blessed colleagues and friends. Happy Easter to all of you and each one of us who has managed to join today's webinar. We know it's an engaged weekend and everybody wants to probably spend time with family and everything. But again, it's an honor to host each and every one of us today to discuss today's topic. As you can see from the webinar's flyer, that today's topic will be on fostering your NCLEX mastery, if I may say. And before we officially begin, I'm going to give a few colleagues, members of us, to probably just share with us what their expectations are, what do they intend to learn or achieve by the end of this webinar. As you join in, please ensure that your mic is on mute. So I'm going to allow probably two people. If you have your expectations, you can either type them in the chat box or raise your hand, and I'll give you the permission to ask your question live. What do you expect to learn or maybe achieve by the end of this webinar or meeting? You can type it in the chat box, or still you can raise your hand and I'll give you an opportunity to ask your question live, or maybe to share your expectation live. Do we have anybody? Do we have anybody who would like to share with us what the expectations are? Unfortunately, if I know your name, I may ask you to share your expectation if we don't see any in the chat box. All right. So I'm going to ask a few of us what the expectations are. If I call your name, kindly please, if you'll be gracious enough to unmute yourself and then just share with us what your expectations are. What do you intend to achieve or learn? What questions do you believe should be answered by the end of this meeting or webinar? I'll begin with, we have an attendant called Abdi Mohammed. Abdi Mohammed, are you in a position to probably unmute and tell us what your expectations are? Abdi? Yes, Abdi, if you are speaking, we cannot hear you. All right, I'll try to look at the chat box to check if we have any expectations, so that we ensure. The reason why we ask this question is to ensure that by the end of the webinar, we will have achieved all your expectations. You will have answered all your questions by the end of the webinar. Okay, without further ado, today's webinar again is on, as you can see from the topic, is fostering, for those ones who received the webinar poster, is fostering your USRN journey. And we're going to discuss on the pre-NCLEX and the post-NCLEX blunders to avoid. So what are these issues that, or pointers that you as an individual or as a nurse who is prepared for NCLEX, how do you land in trouble and the post-NCLEX blunders that you should avoid? That by the end of your process, you are able to achieve your ultimate goal of being a registered nurse in the US. And from the chat box, I already see questions. Those questions coming in end of the webinar. We have our guest speaker for today, but before we go to our guest speaker, I will begin with Humphrey. Humphrey, if you are able to hear me, you can give us an overview of what passcode is, what passcode offers in terms of the attendant, and what attendants can gain from passcode. That's basically dealing with the NCLEX and the USRN journey. Humphrey?
Pardon, I didn't get you well, whether you want me to present at this time or you asked something, sorry?
Yes, and the guest speaker for the day will be joining us probably a few minutes
Yes.
later, unless she has joined in now. I'm trying to look for her. I can't probably see her from the attendance. But from your end, I would like you to present and tell us what passcode is about and what the attendance of this meeting for today. Somebody's telling me my network is breaking. Let me just try to change my network to
Sure.
a different Wi-Fi. Humphrey, is my network breaking from your end?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Back to a better one. Hopefully it will work out.
Lazima ni wanaandiko wanaenda wengi sana.
Sorry about that. Today I'm in a different place from my usual place where Wi-Fi is a little bit shaky, but I hope it will work us throughout the meeting. So Humphrey, I'll be handing it over to you to make your presentation for today before we invite in the guest speaker, as I also sort of my network issue. So can you please come and tell us about passcode, what passcode offers for the attendance of the meeting today, how they're able to make leverage of passcode before we invite in the guest speaker of the day. Humphrey, if you can hear me.
Okay. Okay, can you guys kindly confirm whether you can hear me, please? So that I can...
Yes, Humphrey, I can.
Yeah,
yes, Humphrey, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Can we have someone else confirming whether they can hear me from their location?
Yes, I can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let me first of all start by thanking you all for attending this meeting. It has always been my very great pleasure to do a presentation here, talking to you about a brighter future in regards to passing the NCLEX exam and as well fulfilling your journeys to abroad, especially the USA, which is a top destination for nurses. So I do have a presentation today. I'm going to do a presentation about the topic that is given. That is how to fasten your journey to the USA, how to make it faster. And before that, I will start by introducing passcode. As I can see, a good number of you here are not new to passcode. But the topic is a bit new, so I will ask you to be very attentive because what I'm going to present is going to help a lot in your journey, especially for those who have already started and also for those who have not started. So Passcode Global Consultants is a nursing support agency. What we do is that we support nurses with a self-sponsored program. The self-sponsored program for NCLEX is actually a brainchild of Passcode Global. We have been able to help nurses, a very big number, to do NCLEX as self-sponsored candidates because we saw a gap in the market whereby many nurses who are very well qualified struggled to go to the USA, struggled to do the US process, generally because either they were not working in the preferred hospitals or they didn't have, in quotes, what we called the preferable experience, or maybe they didn't have, or maybe they were past the age that was preferred. But all these preferences are preferences of agencies. They are not preferences set by US immigration. And for that reason, we said, why is it that when a nurse graduates directly from a program, maybe they have completed a 3-year diploma, 3.5 years diploma, or they have completed a 4-year degree course and done internship, gotten licensed, and they have done a whole year of internship. Why is it that this person cannot just go directly do their NCLEX exam and start their USRN journey? And we did research, we realized that it is possible for someone who is working in a smaller hospital to actually register and do NCLEX. It is very possible for someone who is not willing to work or maybe engaged in a different role to actually register and do NCLEX and go back to bedside when they are done with the contract they are doing at that particular time. So we started, and we have a big number of nurses who have gone through passcode. They have passed the exam. They have done also the post-NCLEX procedures, such as the NCLEX, the IELTS, and they have gone, some of them have already gone to the USA. And the journey continues of preparing nurses to actually move to the USA. So we exist to fill that gap and to provide information to nurses, as we are doing today, for free, and to tell nurses about the pathways to different parts of the world, including the USA, Canada, Australia, Republic of Ireland, New Zealand. We help to reduce or to deal with the challenges of the process, including the bottlenecks that are expected in the process, and we help to make the process smooth for nurses. And that is something that we are very proud of. Personally, I'm very proud of that. It is my joy whenever I see a nurse passing their exam and then sending me a message, whatever time of the day or night, to tell me that I have done my exam and I've received that message from the Board of Nursing that I have done it. And now we move to the next step. We do many things. And in regards to the US process, we provide you with information like we are doing here. We help you to register for the NCLEX exam. We teach you, we have a 4-month NCLEX review program, which I will be talking about later. And we provide you with the NCLEX mentorship and guidance and the materials that are required. And we also guide you with travel logistics to go and take your exam to the nearest center to you, either India, South Africa, or in the future, maybe near future, Nairobi. We also do IELTS, that is the English proficiency requirement, or OET, or PTE, or TOEFL, just to supplement the process and prepare you completely before we hand over to a direct hire employer to move on with the process. So these are our contacts. I think one important contact that is not here is the office. We have a regional office for Africa at KDA Plaza, Nairobi City. That is a building between Moi Avenue and Ronan Gala Street. Okay. So that's in a nutshell about passcode. If I would be explaining a service by service, I think I would take much time, and then I didn't have enough time to talk about the current, the today's topic, which is what I believe has brought you here. And without much ado, I beg to go ahead and start presenting the next topic. I mean, the main topic of the day. And then after I am done, hopefully one of our alumni whom we invited today will have joined the meeting to share some NCLEX tips, because I can see a good number here have already started the NCLEX process with passcode. So today's topic is about fastening your USRN journey. The reason why I chose this topic among the many that were competing to be allocated today's webinar is because I have heard out there a number of people, some of them who are not even nurses, discouraging nurses to start the USRN journey because of something called retrogression and other factors. Sometimes people talk about the US process being very long. And I don't know how long is long in quotes, because some of you who are in this meeting have already completed like 10 years since you completed your School of Nursing and you got your license. Maybe you have 10 years experience of working, but probably you have not been satisfied with what you are earning because it doesn't make ends meet. Because we are familiar with our employment scenarios, conditions in most of the African countries. And so if you have to do a journey of 1.5 years to 2 years, something like that, I don't know how we would say that is very long. If the journey is very rewarding, if you ask me, and I'm intentionally using the word very rewarding because I believe most of us already know the rewards of passing the NCLEX exam and becoming an RN in the US. So the topic is intentionally selected by one Humphrey Nkonge out of the many that I was given. And I must introduce myself that I'm a registered nurse. I studied at the University of Nairobi, did my NCLEX back during the COVID period, passed, and I'm registered as well in the US in the state of Texas with an endorsement in the state of Virginia. I do teach NCLEX, and I also coach on OET and IELTS. So fastening your USRN journey, the pre and post NCLEX blunders to avoid. Let me first of all give you a context why this topic is very timely and needed. Now, if 2 of you start the USRN journey today, or maybe 3 or 4 of you start it at once, let's say 4 people have started the journey, there is a high probability that those 4 are not going to do their exam at the same time, probably the same week or month. Maybe, and please note, I'm using the word maybe both of you have a lot of knowledge from passcode, and assuming that you'll not get some hurdles that we are going to talk about, or any of you, because the main point here is that the USRN journey is very individualized, very, very individualized. As we're going to see at the end of this webinar, very individualized. So if 4 people start the journey today, high probability they will not be testing in the same week or same month. High probability they may not get an employer on the same month. High probability they will not do and pass IELTS on the same month. High probability that they will not travel to the US on the same month. high probability that by the time they finish the journey and board the next plane to the US, there will be a gap between them of about 6 months or more. That's a good context. So that as we look at this topic, we will now later ask ourselves, why is it that this gap is coming up? Okay. So I think it's better for me, even as we start this journey, to review in a nutshell, the process of moving to the US. How does it look like? So don't look at the presentation. That's why I've stopped it. Just listen. I will give you an overview of how the process looks like so that you understand well how the gap now comes about. Now, the first thing when you want to do the US process is that you get the information that US has good conditions for working for nurses. It has good salaries. You think about it. You talk to your spouse if you're married, or you talk to your people. Then you make a decision. Once you make a decision, you think about the commitment that is needed, the resources that are needed in terms of money and time, and then you make a decision to move to the USA and to start the journey. Then you come to passcode, you tell us that you want to start the journey. We start you off with NCLEX registration. So we are registering for you for the NCLEX, like registering you with CGFNS, taking your documents to the Nursing Council, taking your documents to the School of Nursing. You get a report called CES report. Once that report comes out, we register you with the Board of Nursing in the US. We help you to do a process called criminal background check, CBC. And then we help you to do another short exam for the board called Nursing Jurisprudence exam. We ready your board for the exam. Then we register you with Pearson VUE, the body that administers the exam. Then now you are ready to schedule for the exam. Before you schedule for the exam, we will have put you in a 4-month revision class for NCLEX. We teach you the entire nursing you have learned in your country. Then we add what is taught in US nursing that you have not studied. Then all that now we prepare you, we assess you, we do assessments, we see that you are ready to go and sit for the exam, then we schedule your exam. You go do your exam and you pass. So once you have passed your exam, now we now enroll you again to IELTS or English Proficiency Exam. You pass your IELTS exam. Once you have your NCLEX, you have your IELTS. Now we take you to visa screening. Visa screening, that's another document now that is needed for you to start the immigration. So after you have passed NCLEX or after you have passed IELTS or at visa screen stage, at any stage you get a direct hire employer. And now with the visa screen, whereby you have already passed your NCLEX and IELTS, you start the immigration process now to the USA. So the immigration process is going to take some time. In a nutshell, that's how the process looks like. So we are looking at pre-NCLEX, before you do NCLEX and pass stages. We are looking at post-NCLEX stages, because the whole journey contains both stages. So let's define a few things here. What is NCLEX-RN? National Council Licensure Examination is the exam that you do for you to get registered in the USA as a registered nurse. The nurse who works below a registered nurse does an exam called NCLEX-PN. So there's a difference between NCLEX-PN and NCLEX-RN. USRN, of course, is United States Registered Nurse. CGFNS is Council for Graduate Foreign Nursing Schools. It is the main body that evaluates your documents to make sure that your documents are valid enough and they meet the standards that are needed for you to practice in the USA. Staffing agency. A staffing agency is an agent that recruits you to their process and sponsors you for the process. You pay very little or nothing throughout the process, and then the agency is going to employ you and place you to a hospital. Then they negotiate a salary for you with the hospital, which you will not know, most probably, and then they pay you and they will recover their money by getting something from your salary for the period of the contract, which is likely to be about 3 years. A client hospital is a hospital that is engaged by your agency to recruit, where you go to work. That is the hospital that will be paying the agent on your behalf. Direct hire employer or direct hire agent is the agent who approaches you, or maybe you has been approached by the hospital to help you with the immigration process so that you can move to the USA, because no one will be able to do the process by themselves without a sponsor. In this case, the direct hire employer, which is mostly the hospital, will be your sponsor in the immigration process. When we talk about BON, we are talking about Board of Nursing. And in the USA, every state has a Board of Nursing, that is like their nursing council. When you talk about IOM, we are talking about International Migration Organization for Migration. That is the body that will do a medical examination on you and administer some vaccines before you are issued with a visa. PD is priority date, and that is the date you get once your petition for immigration has been filed and you are deemed documentarily qualified to continue with the immigration process. CC, case complete. Once you get your PD, you will submit all your documents so that they are reviewed. And once they are reviewed, you will now get to, once they are reviewed and they see that the documents are okay, where they are able to invite you for an interview, you get to a place called case complete. Refused or AP is a stage whereby after you have done the interview, maybe there is an issue, you can be put on what they call AP, or your visa has been refused for some time as they do their investigations. Okay. So that's how the process looks like. And that's why you guys, the process is not very short. The process is also not very easy. Okay. Now, let's look at the pre-NCLEX process points of possible delays. What can make you to delay? And I want to know, because from where I see it, I think I'm the best person to say this. Sometimes you may ask someone, you may see someone started the NCLEX process very long time ago. Some of the things are very personal, so someone may not be able to tell you that something is wrong, and something might be wrong, or maybe something like that. Someone might have started this journey some long time ago and they have not gone to the US. The most likely answer they will tell you is that there is retrogression. Okay? But I want to tell you here that each person's journey is very different. So someone might have done a big delay. Yes. So pre-NCLEX process, we are talking about documents. If your documents are having problems with names, start correcting them now, because that's a possible delay you can have. Your ID passport, the name. Say, for example, I'm called Humphrey Joe Nkonge. So if my transcript is reading Humphrey Joe Nkonge, my ID is reading Humphrey Joe someone else, not Nkonge. Those are two different people. So you'll find a case where someone's ID is reading different from the transcript, and those two documents are still reading different from the nursing license. That person will have a delay of even about 2 months as they process the documents. So if you start the process today, one person is having very clean documents, the other person has a problem with the documents. Say, for example, both of them have come to passcode office. They want to start the process. The person who has a problem with documents will have a delay of about 2 months, because they will start moving from office to office to correct their documents. Now, verifying institutions. Your school of nursing, where you studied nursing, how fast does it process documents? You can start up the process today with someone who studied at school A. Now, when they take their CGFNS document to school A, within 1 week, the document has been sent to the US. But your school takes like 3 to 4 weeks. That person is already ahead of you in the process. So you cannot complete the process at the same time. Now, staffing agency. When you're doing the process with a staffing agency, you must understand that the staffing agents are very different. They are also not the same. Their procedures are very different. There are some agents that are very effective. They do their things very effectively. They do their things very fast. They move your process very fast. They are willing to make the necessary costs, to undergo the necessary costs to fasten your process. There are other agents that are slow. They want to save every coin whenever they can save. They want to save every coin whenever they can save. So your aim is to move to the USA as fast as possible. That might not be the aim of the agency. So you'll find that when you are joining agency A, probably you didn't know agency B existed. So it's not your mistake. No one can blame you for that. But what I'm trying to remove from us is when someone comes and feeds you the information that this process is very long, this process is very long. No, just be patient with the process. You're going to get there. And you see, once you have signed the contract with an agency and you've started the process, moving from that agency is not a solution. Just be patient. You'll get there, but walk your journey, run your race. Or maybe the agency is understaffed. Or maybe the agency, there are some processes they have not understood. I have interacted with many nurses, and you'll find that when it comes to immigration issues, not all agencies are good at immigration issues. Because maybe they have contracted a lawyer who is not very good at immigration, or maybe the lawyer is learning, maybe the lawyer is a novice or something like that. Because some of these are complicated issues. An agency has to have staff in all these departments to understand. For example, if you talk about the boards of nursing, the process for registering a nurse with Texas is different from a process of registering a nurse with Virginia, is different from registering a nurse with Maryland. So every state out of 52 has their specific process. And these agents are registering nurses in all these boards. So if someone has not mastered those processes very well, there is likely to be some delays. Now, process delays in competent assistant, I think I've talked about that. The next one is NCLEX revision, pre-NCLEX. So NCLEX revision can delay you. If, for example, you study for a long time and you feel you are not getting what is being studied, you have really studied hard, but you're not understanding. I usually say that it is very important for you to know yourself. Where do you stand? Are you a slow learner? There's no problem with that, but take your time. Don't compare yourself with someone who is a fast learner. A fast learner will study today and retain more than 50% of what they have learned. And they can download that in the exam. A slow learner will retain 30%. They have to read that book again and again for them to get to about 70%. At the end of the day, all of them will get to 70%, but the slow learner must invest more time than the fast learner. What about Rust? Because I've added it there intentionally. So what happens with that? You may find that someone has let me give an example. You have been practicing in is it maternity ward, or maybe you have been practicing in theater for 10 years. Then you start NCLEX. When you're starting NCLEX, you are supposed to know what happens in maternity, what happens in the cardiac ward, what happens in community health, what happens in A&E, what happens with in renal unit. So you have to revise all that. So after 10 years, that's when you are a friend with books. So you are now going to the books again. What do you expect? Of course, you'll have forgotten most of the things. So as opposed to someone maybe who completed their KRCHN and then they went to do an RNPSN. So they have been studying these things. So they have not trusted. So again, when you compare yourself with someone like that, then you realize that their process is likely to move faster than yours because they may need less time to study for the NCLEX while you need more time. When you have, again, someone who is incompetent, an incompetent person guiding you with the NCLEX, or maybe someone who doesn't have the time, you know, and this is a mistake that sometimes people make. Because your friend passed NCLEX, you are telling yourself, someone will just guide me. But for sure, NCLEX content is a lot. This person may be so willing to guide you, but they don't have the time because they also have their things to do. Nowadays, there are so many programs that are teaching NCLEX, by the way. And I'm not sure, you just do your investigations to be sure that the person who is teaching you NCLEX has even done that NCLEX itself and even passed it. Or even if that person is a nurse, you know, sometimes people are too trusting. So if you are guided by someone who is not sure of what they are doing, again, you may find that your process is taking so long. Maybe you have paid some money, you're not getting value for money. The process is not moving, you are lost, you feel lost, you don't know where you are. And this is a complex process. Once you start this process, it comes with stress because you have to adjust so many things. You have to change so many things in your life for you to, to topple this exam. The next stressor is money, which can delay you. Yes, money can delay you, whether you are doing this process with an agency or you are doing with as a self-sponsored candidate. Because even when you're doing this process with an agent, there are some monies they are not going to pay for you. Like going to verify your documents to the Nursing Council, School of Nursing, most of the agencies do not pay for those monies. Or maybe when they have bought you one question bank, they have bought you your world or Archer Review. Once it is done and you feel you are at 50%, you cannot go to sit for the exam. They are not willing to purchase the next one for you. And you want to pass your exam. So what are you going to do? If you have the money, you pay for yourself. So money can delay you. And I would like to urge you, if you're planning to start the NCLEX process, the USRN process, start saving money. Start saving something for the US process because it will need money. Even post-NCLEX, after you have passed NCLEX, money is still needed. Okay? All right, so let me look at what I have here. Okay. I hope you're following, you guys. Can I take a break to ask whether people are still following? Maybe I might be speaking alone here. Are you following? Yes.
Yeah, sure, Humphrey. We can have participants in comment in the chat box whether they are following. Please comment in the chat box whether you are following so that we are able to motivate the preacher. Okay. Motivate the preacher with an amen. Say yes, you are following.
I'm a preacher, but I preach NCLEX. Okay. I can see
so you have people following. I see you.
Wow.
Humphrey can go on.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Yeah, now, so let's look at post-NCLEX. After you have done NCLEX, where can you have delays? Can you have delays after NCLEX? Yes, you can have delays. Now, once you have done NCLEX, and this is something that I've encountered with some people, which is understandable, is that you want to rest. So there's a lot of fatigue. Let me tell you something, by the way, and I usually tell this to people when they give me a call or they come to my office and tell me, Humphrey, now I am ready. I want us to schedule this exam. So I usually tell them that, you know what? All the people who have passed NCLEX, I have followed their journeys and they study like very much. Then I tell the person, for you where you are, if I can just tell you the truth, I don't think we are still yet there. Please add another month, then you come again. Now, after you have done NCLEX, because of the efforts that you have put in, there is a lot of fatigue. So I usually advise you can take like a month, even before you start that IELTS, or even 2 weeks to the lowest, shortest time before you continue with IELTS. So is it a delay? Yes, it is a delay, but it is a necessary delay because it is your body, it is your mind, it is your psychological health. So it is a delay, but it is a necessary delay. Even when you are hiking, for example, for those of you who go hiking, you do some hike for some time, you do a phase, then you have some rest because this journey is like hiking a mountain. So you do a necessary delay, but you need that rest so that when you start the next phase, you will have the energy. So some people actually, now this is where the problem comes. When some people now extend their delay. So instead of doing like 1 month, someone has done like 2-3 months. I remember there's a time I encountered someone who had done like 3-4 months delay after NCLEX. Then they told me, which is understandable actually, that after NCLEX, the resources were exhausted. So they needed to have some delay so that they can replenish their resources before coming back, which is understandable. Because like now, I understand that the institutions that examine people on English proficiency have added to their fees. So right now, the fees is a bit high compared to last year. So of course, that comes with additional costs, probably which you had not budgeted for. Employer, if you take long to get an employer, it is also a delay. So I would be advising you on what to do on that so that you don't delay in getting an employer. Immigration documents. If your immigration documents are not ready, remember at the beginning we were talking about NCLEX documents. Now we are talking about immigration documents. If your immigration documents are not ready, say for example, when you are starting NCLEX, you are not married. After now, when you are done with NCLEX, you have someone, okay? Maybe this someone even supported you a lot in the NCLEX, and you're feeling, this person, I have to reward them by going with them, continuing with them with them in this life journey. And this life journey, you want to do it in the US, so you do it in the US with them. So you need the civil document, marriage certificate. So you start now gathering the marriage certificate because you don't want to start the immigration journey without this person. And you know, if you start the migration journey without this person, it can be a bit complicated to go add someone when the journey has already started. That's another delay that actually some people are delaying at the embassy because of such issues. But when you ask that person, why are you still delaying? Do you think they will tell you the exact reason? Of course, they should not tell you, but I am here to tell you, since I'm not discussing any person, so I will tell you these are some of the things that delay people. Someone will start their US process within 1.5 years, they are done, they fly. Another person will take even 3 years or 4 years. I am not saying that all the people who are delaying, they have problems. So please don't misquote me. But I'm telling you some of these things happen, and they do happen, okay? Now, I forgot to say on the part of the employer, getting an employer in the US is not very hard. But if you don't shine in the interview, if the employer thinks this person is not serious because of some of the small things, that employer is not going to take you. Most of the people who have prepared well, they will not do more than 2 interviews before they get an employer currently with the US situation because they need nurses. So what happens, you guys, you know, in the US, there are many nurses, there are even Americans nurses, there are so many, but many of American nurses don't practice nursing for long. They just practice for some years, get their money, go to do other things because the country provides so many opportunities. If you want to go do artisan things, you just go do artisan things. And if you have some money from your nursing practice you have saved, you can go even start your business or something like that. Type of visa can also be a delay. Most of the nurses use, and most of the employers of nurses use the EB3 visa, employment-based visa category 3. This is a green card. It is an immigration visa. One of the reasons why it is very preferred, it is because it gives you permanent residence in the USA. So you go to the USA and you earn permanent residence. After staying there for 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. The other type of visa is H-1B. H-1B is not very famous with nurse migration, but most employers, some of the employers have already started moving people with H-1B because of the long time that EB3 takes. Especially last year, during the retrogression period, employers started using the H-1B visa. So the H-1B visa is an immigrant visa. It has a validity of 3 years, and it can be renewed once. So most of the people who went, and I know several, some of them are my personal friends, who went with H-1B, they had already been filed by their employers, the EB3 visa. So they will use EB3, H-1B, move to the US and wait for their EB3 visa while in the US. This visa, H-1B, also allows you to move with your family, only that the spouse may take about 6 months without working as you guys process their papers. The other visa is F1. F1 is an educational pathway. This one wouldn't be very good for someone who is moving with a family, but it would be okay for someone who is not moving with a family. And again, they have to apply for a work visa. So majorly, the two visas are EB3 and H-1B. So that would be a topic for another day to compare those two visas, tell you the advantages, disadvantages of each. But for H-1B, it will need someone to be a degree holder. EB3, not so. Now, once you have done NCLEX, you have passed. You have done IELTS, you have passed. You get your visa screen certificate. Now, the employer, once you get your visa screen certificate, you have an employer, your employer files an immigration petition, which is called I-140 petition. Okay? This, guys, is a point of delay, which so many people do not know. And this can give you a delay of about 6 months. Why? Because if your employer files for premium processing for I-140, you're going to get your I-140 out in about 2 weeks. About 15 working days, it will be out. And you get your priority date. And the priority date is the one that determines your wait times at the embassy. That will be in the next webinar when we will be talking about visa bulletin. What does it mean? How do you interpret it? So an employer who does not file for I-140 petition premium processing, you might have to wait for about 4 to 6 months, the regular wait time for I-140 petition. So is that a delay? Yes, because if myself, you and I join employment in about 2 weeks' time, I'll have an answer. For you, you wait for 4 to 6 months. Is it a delay? Yes. DS-260. Now, this one, after you have received your I-140 petition approval, you fill the DS-260. Again, that takes us back to documents. Do you have your documents ready? The other one is visa interview wait time, retrogression. That one is historical. Visa retrogression has always been there. Even when so many nurses were not moving to the US, the visa retrogression. So the most important thing for you here, the waiting times usually vary. They vary depending on when has the interview released dates and when is your priority date current. So you may find that after getting their I-140 petition approval, someone has waited for 6 months and they get an interview date. Another person has waited for 1 year. Another person has waited for 1.5 years. So it varies a lot. Your timing will not be the same as the other person's timing. So on this one, I'll just tell you, do your part. Let the rest do their part. Okay? Now, how to navigate smoothly. So what are you supposed to do? Bear with me, I'm almost completing the presentation. So what are you supposed to do so that your process can move smoothly? I would recommend expert consultation. There are some people who usually call me, ask me this and this, how does it happen? How do we do about this? It is very important. It helps you to know, how am I supposed to be preparing? Like now, we will be having our next class for NCLEX in May 13th. There are some people who have already approached me. Some of them have already paid for their class. They have started doing registrations. They have started doing the preparations that are needed for them to join the class. So you may join the class and on the same day with someone, but that someone is already so far ahead of the journey because they have already started their CGFNS applications. So yes, when we are guiding you, smooth flow is a guarantee because we do not joke with your hard-earned coin. Being a nurse myself, I understand what to go through to bring that coin into the pocket. So NCLEX registrations, again, we ensure that the process moves smoothly. We advise you which body to use because there are some document evaluation institutions that are going to delay you a lot, to have a back and forth between your institution and them. When they see an error in your transcripts, they will never clarify. They will just go ahead and produce a report that is having an error. So we usually scrutinize. Even nowadays, we are even looking at your transcripts, hour by hour. We look at the clinical hours, how they are recorded. We look at the theory hours, how they have been recorded, gauging by the experiences that we have undergone while doing this process for the last 3 or more years. NCLEX revision, this is something that we do with a lot of passion to teach NCLEX, to guide people, to show people how to study NCLEX. Most of the times I've brought people here to tell you how you should. That I should also do a webinar where I teach people how to answer NCLEX questions, because once you master the skills of answering NCLEX questions, it becomes a bit easy than when you are struggling without someone to guide you, or you are struggling with someone who is guiding you, but they are not sure how they should guide you. They are just guessing, or they have a lot of passion to assist you, but they don't know how. US employment, I think I mentioned something about that, and the nature of employer. Okay, once you have passed NCLEX, don't be so quick to sign a contract, the first contract you get. You will get so many contracts if you want, and you can compare and get the best. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying here. When you pass NCLEX, there is an employer who will tell you, how much money did you use in your NCLEX process? You tell them I used $3,000 US. So they tell you, okay, fine. I am going to refund you the 3,000. I am even going to double it. I am even going to triple it. So I'm going to give you a sign-on bonus of 10,000 USD. For those people who are in Kenya, that is more than 1 million Kenya shillings. So they give you that as a sign-on bonus, but they're giving you $35 an hour. Another employer is telling you, I am not going to refund your NCLEX cost, but I'm giving you $42 an hour. Which employer are you going to take? Some people will think this person is giving you 1 million sign-on bonus, 1 million. What I used in NCLEX multiply by 3, you take that one and you take your $35 an hour. You have not even looked at the term of the contract. Probably they are giving you 3 years. The other one is giving you 42 and they are giving you 2 years. The first one might giving you 3 years as a block. The other one is giving you 3 years in hours. Who is best? Of course, the one who is giving you. So we also usually have sessions to tell people about employment, how to choose an employer. What are some of the nitty-gritties you should be very careful about? The devil is usually hidden in the details. So we want you to understand those nitty-gritties of the contract. Okay. Okay, I think I've talked about that. So what are the requirements to start the USRN process? Experience 0, as long as you have your nursing license. So to start the NCLEX US process, you need 0 experience as long as you have your nursing license. Let me tell you how this happens. As long as when you're working as a nurse, you are gaining experience on a daily basis. So from the time you got your license, if you start the NCLEX journey, we approximate about 6 months. So by the time you're passing the NCLEX, you will be about 6 months experience. Give yourself about 2 months to do IELTS. You'll be about 8 months experience. By the time you're getting employer doing this I-140, blah, 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 you'll be about 2 years experience. You are so much ready to move to the US. So you need your active nursing license and your nursing council or nursing board certificates. And then your academic documents, and of course, money. Money. You need money for this process. Let no one lie to you. Whether you are doing the agency process, I remember in our previous webinar, part 1, we talked about the costs. So you can go to our YouTube channel. I will link that webinar here actually, and look at the costs that are involved. You also need the right motivation. When you lose yourself during the journey, go back, ask yourself, why did I start this journey? And I usually tell people who come through me, don't start this journey because your friend has started. Evaluate why exactly you want to start this journey. If you have questions, ask them before you start. You'll need to allocate time and commit the process. So what is on the screen right now, maybe what I can mention is that our next NCLEX class will be starting in May, on May 13th. And this is a 4-month NCLEX program where you'll be attending classes on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, live classes via Zoom, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. EAT is East African time. And these classes, we do record them. If you miss a class, you can listen to the recording. We also give you enough questions to practice. And you will be you'll be a member of our online learning portal where you can access the materials and the recordings and all those features that you see there. It is a very comprehensive program that if you follow it, by the end of those 4 months, you go to either South Africa or India, or if Nairobi will be operating by then, you sit for your exam. Most probably it's going to shut down at 85 questions and you pass your exam. We usually prepare you best so that even if it doesn't shut down at 85, you still are able to continue with your exam until it shuts down and you pass your exam. So that's another class now that we do in last mile preparation for the NCLEX. Okay. So I know I've taken much time that I needed to take, but the reason is because when I start doing some of these presentations, you usually feel very good to do them and to pass this information, because I usually believe it is very helpful information which you as nurses you need to know, and indeed use it to your best and move forward. So Donald, if you can hear me, that's the end of my presentation. I will now beg to be allowed to usher in, I'll be allowed to give it back to you so that you can usher in the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Humphrey. That was a very brilliant presentation. I mean, all the pre-NCLEX and post-NCLEX barriers, beginning from documentation issues, verified issues, staffing agency issues, recruitment, money, and also post-NCLEX issues, ranging from fatigue, the IELTS issues, employer issues, and immigration issues, the visa requirements. I mean, it's an important topic that probably we've not handled before. But I know we have questions, very many questions that are arising from your presentation. But before we handle the questions that we have a very an energizing panelist, and a panelist that I would love to give a chance that to communicate, talk to us. That is Paulette Maina. Paulette, you've been a candidate who has passed your NCLEX through the Passport Global Consultants USRN or the NCLEX program. I would like to invite you. You've listened to how talk about the pre-NCLEX and the post-NCLEX barriers that that face nurses who are in this journey. So I'd like to invite you and share with us your journey from pre-NCLEX, during NCLEX, and post-NCLEX. What are the pre-NCLEX barriers you faced? What are the intra-NCLEX barriers you faced? What are the post-NCLEX barriers you faced? And lastly, what are your key takeaways? Like, what do you want us to learn from using your own journey, Paulette? So, Paulette, Maina, if you can hear me, you can unmute. Probably put on your video. We'd like to see your beautiful face as you talk to us this Easter. Yes, Paulette? Okay, I think we lost Paulette through the meeting because I understand she has been having issues with her internet and connectivity. So I'm pretty sure we're going to rely much on what we have presented before, so that we build on this discussion. And I know we have very many questions. There were even questions right before how do you begin making your presentation. So before we go to the chat box, I'm going to give two people a chance to ask their question live, so that Humphrey can respond to them before we go to the chat box. If you feel like you are able to ask your question live, are you able to raise your hand? Just raise your hand, then I'll give you the mic to ask your question live. If you're able to ask your question live, just raise your hand and I'll give you the mic. Yeah, just raise your hand. I'll be able to give you the mic to ask the question live. Paulette, I've seen you. You are here, Paulette? Yes. Paulette, if you can hear me, can you able to unmute? Okay, I see she's having a little bit of challenges with So before Paulette can speak to us, do we have somebody who is willing to ask a question live before we bring in Paulette to give a few remarks on her in the chat box? Yes, Paulette. Yes, please. There's somebody who is has unmuted.
Arsenal angepata ilikuwa bao, sio?
Yes, Paulette, can hear you. I'm going to mute everyone and then I'm going to mute everyone, Paulette, and then allow you only you to unmute yourself so that we proceed with minimal noise. Paulette can continue if you wanted to share your screen. You can share. Humphrey will enable you to share your screen.
Okay, let me just go to the screen. It's fine for the interest of time.
Yes, sure.
So evening, everyone. My name is Paulette Maina. I recently sat for the NCLEX in the past. Donald, there's some questions you had asked kindly so that I don't find myself speaking out of context. If you don't mind, you can ask them again.
Yes, sure, Paulette. Welcome very much. I'm sorry for that technical hitch. So the question I had asked and I really wanted you to handle is that Humphrey had talked about the pre-NCLEX and the post-NCLEX barriers that nurses should look out for, and how to avoid them or how to overcome them. So we'd also like to hear from your own story, your own journey. What are these pre-NCLEX barriers you faced? What are the pre-NCLEX and the post-NCLEX barriers you faced? And also with that, you can still share with us your entire NCLEX journey, how you signed up for classes, how you revised for your NCLEX classes until how you passed. because we understand that you are one of the people who have passed NCLEX through the Global Consultant NCLEX review program. And we are proud of you, but the nurses here would also like to be motivated and also listen and hear from your journey. So take us through your pre-NCLEX, your intra-NCLEX, and also post-NCLEX journey.
Okay, so thank you. For me, I started passcode a little bit after I had moved on with my process a little bit. So I had already done my CGFNS, had my CES report with me, but I had not studied enough for me to feel ready to schedule for the exam. So that's when I met Humphrey. So before that, the basic things that maybe I went through was, as he had spoken about the certification, I had a delay with my, transcripts, especially from KMTC. It took me like 3 months to get my transcript. So maybe in regard to that, I would advise anyone, first get your documents ready before starting anything, because now that made me delay in my verification. So with that said, after I got my CES report, I joined Passcode last year in October. That's when I started joining the classes. And what I gathered from there is I really needed to get a hold of my content. So I used to attend the classes on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Some were a bit tricky because of work, but anytime I got the time, I used to go back to the portal and make sure that I get to the class that was taught. Before, when you're starting, have a plan. Know when you want to test. So have a clear picture of you want to study in 3 months or 5 months. So by that, you will be able to know where to start. So first, I started with content. That was, I really utilized Sounders and Passcode Notes. In terms of Sounders, many people say that Sounders is bulk, but if you have a study plan, I feel like Sounders is doable. According to me, if you are able to subject the units well, you will be able to cover a lot on Sounders. And also, I made use of the Simple Nursing YouTube videos. They also helped me where I felt like I wasn't really understanding the content well. So Sounders and YouTube really helped. Then attending the Passcode classes. Then there are modules that Passcode gives us. There are around 10 module exams. And I used those module exams while we were still having our classes, at least 2 modules a week. So that by the end of the 2nd month into the program, you're done with the module exams. So the module exams basically help you to understand where you are in terms of your content. Something about the module exams, I would like to advise, don't feel discouraged at first if you get yourself not scoring really well. But as time goes by and you keep building up on your content, you will notice your scores changing. Then another thing is early in the program, cancel any extra engagements. Like if you do extra shifts at work, if you do locums, you'll have to do away with them to create more time for yourself to study. So speaking of, let's say 3 months towards the exam, for me, I did my exam last week. So I took a whole month and a half of leave. If your workplace agrees, but if you can take a month, that's okay. At least, especially the last 4 weeks to your exam, be free. So 3 months to the exam, purchase a QBank. I purchased the Archer. Then as you go on in using your Archer, and you find yourself that you've utilized most of the questions, you can get yourselves into a group of maybe 4 and purchase another question bank, maybe Simple Nursing or UWorld. They are a bit expensive than Archer, but they are also good. So I will advise you have Archer as your, like, if you have to have a Q bank, use Archer. Then maybe UWorld and Simple Nursing you can buy as a team, but have one that is just yours alone. So you can purchase one as a group and one as an individual. Then practice questions every day and make sure that you review your rationales. Anytime you do questions, even if you're at work, if you are able to do 20 questions, just do the 20 and review the rationales. The rationales really help in building on your content, and you're able to understand your weak areas. Then maybe to say, do not get discouraged when you're not getting very high scores at first on your Q banks. I remember in the beginning of January, I was getting really as low as 54%. And we were talking to her, I was talking to Humphrey, and he was telling me, the more I build on content and practice more questions, I will notice my scores changing. So one thing I did, I changed my study style, how I used to study. And I went now back to going back to content afresh. Where you feel you're not doing well, if it is mental health, don't get tired of going back to the content. So if you're failing at the questions at first, don't get discouraged. Then as time goes by the time I was going to sit for my NCLEX, the last 4 weeks, I was getting very high scores, and I felt it helped me get a lot of confidence while doing the exam. Another thing is there are specific, I don't know, are we still together?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay.
We can hear you loud and clear. Please go on.
Okay. So
Yes.
there are some systems or particular topics I felt like if you don't know this topic, itakukalia. So a must to know systems that as I kept on reading, I felt like endocrine system was a big thing, endocrine system in the NCLEX. Then the respiratory, integumentary system, the GIT mostly in terms of skills of how to manage drains, and the renal system. Then another big deal was I did a lot of questions on prioritization and delegation, but mostly prioritization. Then a big thing I noted was mental health was so big. You won't miss a question on mental health. Then safety and risk prevention. Under that, maybe transmission precautions, falls, how to prevent falls, pressure ulcers, DVT, and also how to advise your patient who is using assistive devices. These things might sound a little bit strange at this point right now, but as you move on, you will get yourself more familiar with them. Then another topic I found that was so big was basic care and comfort. That is skills, maybe post-operative care and care of tubes and drains. So that is basically the things that I found will really help you as you build your content. They are very key. So in summary, I will just advise that NCLEX is a very personal journey. So do what works for you. If you feel like you are able to go through a lot of content, go through it. If you're able to go through Sounders, you go through it. Don't feel like it's a very big book. If you have a study plan, you'll be able to go through it. Even the passcode lecture notes are really good because they are very helpful because they are very compressed. So for those who don't feel like you're able to go through a lot of content, the passcode notes will really help you. then always motivate yourself. Even if you feel like your scores are not so good, push yourself. Don't push the exam dates. You push yourself towards the exam date. And then another key thing that I taught myself is the goal is not to do 85 questions, but the goal is to pass. Because I found out there's a day I did questions on UWorld, and after the 85th question, I got the 86th question and I panicked. And that's when I told myself the goal is not just 85 questions, but the goal is passing. I think, Donald, I'll beg to stop at that. Maybe if there are any questions.
Wow, Paulette, I mean, there's a point that you are raising, and I'm really in love with that point when you say the goal is not 85 points, but the goal is passing. So long as you stay in the game, so long as you keep being equal, you are getting the 86th question, 87th, 89th, 100th or so. You focus on the goal, and that goal is to pass. I mean, it's just so beautiful when you say that.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Paulette. I know we'll have a line of questions lined up for you to share with attendees. So attendees, we are very sorry for the technical hitch we had earlier, and I know many of you had asked questions in the chat box earlier. Unfortunately, when a call drops or a Zoom call drops, it drops with the questions that were there before. So I request you to repost your questions in the chat box if you had any, so that Humphrey and Paulette can address them as we edge towards the final moments of our webinar, which will be ending probably in the next 8 minutes. And so we have a few questions, and I see people telling you congratulations, Maina. Congratulations, by the way, for passing your NCLEX. It's not an easy journey.
Thank you so much.
Much congratulations. And so Humphrey, we have a few questions that I'd like you to address first. As you can see from the chat box, before we go to Paulette, as Paulette has some sip of water. I have a question that was directed directly in my DM, in my direct message from Nathan. Nathan was Omukokong. I believe this one is from Kenya. Nathan is asking, I have a challenge in finding an agent. I did higher diploma in anesthesia, kindly advise. So I believe Nathan is trying to make the Kenya USRN Journey, and he's having a challenge about agency issues. I know, Humphrey, you are good at that. You'll be able to respond to Mokoko's question. And then there's another. So, Humphrey, I'm going to direct three questions to you. Okay?
Okay.
The second question is the first question from Mukoko, right, about agency. So Mukoko is saying that he's having he has challenges in finding what? In finding an agency. And then the second question is from Karen Chepleting. Karen is asking, do they look at scores on transcript for one to sit for NCLEX? So when you're applying for NCLEX, does my gradings on my transcript have a say per se on that's what Karen is asking. And the third question from Peter Gashega is, what are the most common parts that are tested in NCLEX? I know Minor had tried to tackle a few issues about mental health and what have we, but you as a trainer, do you think there are some common parts that are tested in NCLEX? So those three, then the next questions will be for Minor from Berin. So Humphrey, the first three questions are yours.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let me start by go directly to the questions for the interest of time. So the first question is about finding an agent. I may not know the specific reason why this client is having a problem finding an agent. if we are to be very honest with this person, we would want to know the specific reason, and for that, the person can reach to us so that we can do what, maybe like a diagnosis to know what did agency A say when they applied with them? What did agency B say? Is there any consistency between these agents? So there are many reasons why someone can be, may not be successful when they apply with an agent. And I want to be very honest with you. Sometimes agents can reject you just because they have enough people. Not that you are not qualified, you know. Maybe they had a target of getting like 500 people for 2023. And the moment they have the 500 people in their program, they may not tell you that we have enough, but they will just find, sometimes they just find a reason to have you out. So for specific issues, I would urge that you get in touch with us. Our contacts are going to be shared on the chat box. You can, for the number that will be shared, you can call during work hours, or you can chat on WhatsApp and you will receive a response. The next question is about scores on the transcripts. They will not look at the scores on the transcripts for them to allow you to do NCLEX. Mostly the transcripts list the hours, the theory hours and the clinical hours. And what they'll be looking at is whether your hours meet the recommended hours for each board. So as long as you have your nursing license, don't worry about what you got. I remember when we were in nursing school and the exams got very hard, and the pass mark was 50%. Sometimes you wondered if these guys are allowing you to get, if you get 50%, you pass. Can you treat a patient by 50%? But now the 50% was very hard for you to get, to reach. Now you wondered if they made the exam to be 100%, how many people would pass in nursing school? So I think medical courses, you do continuous learning. So don't worry about those exams that you did not get well. As long as you have that nursing license, you're very much good to go. Common parts examined or asked in the NCLEX. This is a very good question for me. I think Paulette has highlighted a number of the commonest topics that are asked in the NCLEX. But from my perspective, what I will tell you is that for each topic that is given in the NCLEX, they are parts. And even when we are teaching NCLEX, we emphasize the concepts that are testable for a particular topic. So number one, you must understand the NCLEX curriculum. We usually divide the NCLEX curriculum into client need categories, where we divide them into 4. I heard Paulette mentioning some of them. We usually have safe and effective care environment as number 1, health promotion and maintenance, psychosocial integrity, dealing with mental health, and physiological integrity, dealing with physiology, pathology, et al. Now, for each of those 4, they have subcategories and sub-subcategories within them. So for each of the subcategory in the NCLEX, you must understand what are the topics that are tested in this category or subcategory, and per topic, what are the concepts that are tested, such that if you are narrowing down to pharmacology and pharmacotherapeutics, and you go further to narrow down to a drug like digoxin, you are asking yourself, under digoxin, what is tested? Are they going to test the fact that I need to know that if I'm giving digoxin, I need to take apical pass for 1 full minute and not have a minute, then I multiply by 2. Signs of toxicity, late signs of toxicity. Are they going to test me on my knowledge of therapeutic levels of digoxin, etc., etc.? If you narrow down to something like insulin, you start asking yourself, are they going to test me on peak levels? Are they going to test me on Is it called half-life or what? Are they going to test me on which insulins I can use IV, which ones I cannot, which ones I can, refrigerate, which ones I cannot? So for each of the topics, you must understand what are the testable concepts. So for topic X, what does NCLEX need? Our NCLEX teaching in the curriculum, we teach everything. We do not select a few topics that are very hard because we want you to be fully prepared for the exam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to refer you to Sir Humphrey, as I normally call you. I see there are more questions coming in. Unfortunately, most of the questions appear to be more of administrative that Humphrey could respond to. But before I bring in Humphrey, I have one question to Paulette. So Paulette, we have a participant who was asked about, I'd like to know from you, right? And probably respond to this participant that basing on your experience and what you have seen so far, those are for post-NCLEX. Do you think you can get a direct job? For post-NCLEX, can you get a job without experience? From what you have experienced personally as Paulette, do you think post-NCLEX you can get a job without having bedside experience? What do you think about this, Paulette, before you go to Humphrey?
Okay, maybe to answer that, post-NCLEX, you'll get a lot of offers and acceptances by these agencies of direct hire. Because of the fact that you've just done NCLEX, that is a tick for you. About the work experience, they will definitely ask you about the experience, and the first thing they ask for is the CV. So they look at your CV to help them qualify you. Without experience, I'm not really sure, because me myself, I have the experience, so I can't really talk of that side. But they normally, the few agencies I've spoken to, I have been able to contact, the first question is about experience.
Correct.
Yes.
Humphrey, as you probably respond to the same question as Paulette, I would also like you to ask to answer the same question as what Beverly Jerry, which one would you prefer? The same question as Paulette, that would you need job experience? Would you need experience before you do NCLEX? And between agency and post and self-sponsorship, which one would you prefer? And then keep it under 1 minute because we should be closing the meeting in the next 3 minutes.
Okay, so can I go ahead and answer?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay. I did not get the question on the one for agency and self-sponsorship, which one I would prefer. I didn't get.
Yeah, which one would you prefer between a self-sponsored program and an agency program? You as Humphrey and probably as Passcode, what would you advise attendees of today? I know it's a tricky one.
That is okay. I think let me start with that one. That's a very hard question for me because
I know, right?
Actually, it is not a matter of preference. It would be a matter of preference if someone is having if someone is spoiled of choices, okay? Because I know there are some people who join agents because when you want to sponsor yourself for the NCLEX, it involves more money than when you are being sponsored by an agency. So currently we are talking about $2,000 to be able to sponsor yourself for the entire NCLEX journey, which is not much money in the US, but which is a lot of money for most of the nurses outside the US. So if someone would be having the choice to make, money not being a problem, I would advise them to go for the self-sponsored program any day. Self-sponsored program any day. Because once you have passed NCLEX, even if you want to join a staffing agency, a sponsoring agency, that agency is going to give you a very short contract. And because this question has been asked, let me also say here that, and I think I should say this for free without asking for people to come and maybe pay for consultation, because we have many people who are passing NCLEX with passcode. And we want
Humphrey, if I may interject you.
Yes, please.
Humphrey, if I may interject you,
yes.
while you are responding to that, probably you can give the difference between an agency staff and a staff nurse, so that probably the attendees are able to understand the difference between an agency nurse and a staff nurse. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. So an agency nurse is a nurse who has been taken to the US, to the client hospital now, through a staffing agent. And a staff of the hospital has been employed directly by the hospital. So there are benefits that the staff is open to, which the agency nurse is not open to. Now let me go back to my advice for those who are looking for employment. Because I can see there are so many nurses in this, I mean, there are quite a number of nurses in this webinar who have already passed NCLEX with the passcode, and others almost doing their exam. Now, the market for nurses nowadays is big, and the employers are many. We have many employers. Nowadays, employers are so many, not like before when the employers are few. So among these employers, there are those who are using the word direct hire. But if you scrutinize what they are doing, they are actually not doing what a direct hire should do. Because like for the hourly rate, one of the distinguishing factors of direct hire is that they should give you a good hourly rate. So if someone is telling you that they are a direct hire and they are not giving you a good hourly rate, I don't think you have a reason to join them.
Correct.
Another thing is the contract hours. If an employer is giving you 3 years as a block, it has a difference with 3 years in terms of hours. Because 3 years in terms of hours, what it means is that, you know, the context of this is that when you go to the US for the first time, with the first contract, whether you are going with direct hire or not direct hire, you are still tied to the first contract. You want to finish it as quickly as possible, and now do whatever you want to do. Maybe you want to do travel nursing, you want to be doing shifts when you want, you know. With the first contract, you may not be able to do that because you don't even have US experience. So when an employer is giving you employment in terms of hours, it is better than when they are giving you in terms of time, that you have to be with them for 3 years. It is very different than you have to be with them for a certain number of hours. Because if they count, in US, mostly people work 3 days a week. That is 36 hours. That's the regular work time. So if they are talking about 36 hours, and then they count that and multiply it by 12 for 1 year, I mean 52 for 1 year, 52 weeks, then multiply it by 3. If they are giving you a contract in terms of hours, it means that when you are doing extra shifts with your employer, you are reducing your hours. So there's a possibility that you will finish their 3-year contract, 3-year in quotes, before the 3 years end. You see? So there are some employers, when you do extra shifts, they add to your contract. They count them to your contract. So if you work like 5 days a week, you can finish your contract in less than 2 years because you have finished the number of hours you signed for. But those ones who give you a contract for 3 years as a block, you have to be with them for 36 months. So that means that even if you see very mouth-watering deals somewhere else, you are still tied to your employer. You may not be able to take them. So that is very important for me to mention. So as I end that, I will say, self-sponsored program any day. So I was saying, even when you do NCLEX by yourself, even if you wanted to use a particular agency, because there are some people who don't like the direct hire, by the way. There are people who finish NCLEX and they rush to staffing agents because they have friends there who have told them that these guys have a very nice orientation program, these guys have organized this, these guys have organized this. That is okay. But when you go there, you have passed NCLEX. I believe they give you a better deal because they also say, if you come to us and you have passed NCLEX, instead of 3 years, they give you 2 years contract. The shorter the contract, the better for you. If they are giving someone who has not passed NCLEX $30 an hour, they are going to give you 40 or even 37, which is okay. And on top of that, they give you a sign-on bonus. Now, let me tell you something else which is very important. If your resources do not allow you to meet the conditions of some employers, because you might meet an employer, you have already passed NCLEX, you have used a lot of money, you have exhausted yourself. If you meet an employer who is not willing to pay for your visa screen certificate and you don't have the money, you'd rather take the one who is paying for your visa screen certificate. Instead of delaying, continue to delay, and you'll still have another delay to deal with at the embassy level. So this is very... Choose an employer well and move fast once you have passed your NCLEX. Let me go to the question of bedside experience. The question of bedside experience is not a question, actually, that we as nurses should be asking, because you are moving from a less demanding clinical area to a more demanding, a very demanding clinical area. So for those of you who have already interacted with the NCLEX, you know that to practice in the US as a nurse, there is a high expectation, a lot of expectations from you. You must be having a lot of knowledge. When you are practicing as a nurse in the US and you call a physician, you call a doctor because of a situation, you do not call the doctor to ask them what to do. Situation, background, assessment, recommendation. So you have assessed your patient, you have recommended what should be done to the patient, so you are calling the doctor to approve. You recommend to the doctor what you think should be done because you are knowledgeable. Is the head of the nursing team by law. Now, when you make a mistake, when you make an error that might cost you the patient, even if it is the doctor who said you do something and you do it without questioning it, you will be the first culprit. Actually, you are the only responsible person. So from where I sit, I would be doing a lot of injustice to anyone if I tell them, yes, you can go to the US without bedside experience. Okay? So please understand my language. I'm not saying you can't do NCLEX, but I'm telling you, even as you prepare, you are doing NCLEX, know yourself. We don't want to tell someone who doesn't have an opportunity to work at the biggest referral hospital, East and Central Africa. We don't want to tell you you don't have the opportunity to do it. Do your NCLEX, but be wise.
Yes.
Even if it means volunteering somewhere, start volunteering because you need that knowledge. Once you cross over to the other side, you have a license to safeguard.
Yes.
Would you want to lose your license after going to the US and practicing for just 2 months? Of course not. And I think I'll end that one there.
Thank you very much, Alfred. That is so in-depth. And I'm really picking up a lot from what you say, that you need the experience. That is one. Number two, that NCLEX program is doable. So what I'm going to do in the next 1 minute, so because we have 5 minutes to 9 p.m. East African time, we are going to have the closing remarks, and that's the call to action beginning from Paulette. Paulette, looking at how the meeting has been today and the attendance today, looking at how the questions have been, what will be your call to action or your closing remarks for this meeting? What would you like to tell the nurses who have attended today as your closing remarks, probably in 30 seconds? I know we have very many questions, very many questions, and I'll advise that because of we can never tackle all questions at once. Humphrey, you're going to share the contacts for passcode in the chat box. I'll also share my contacts because I've seen somebody asking for my contacts. I'll share mine towards the end. But Paulette, looking at judging by this meeting, what will be your call to action or your closing remarks in 30 seconds, kindly?
What I would advise is before starting anything, do your research well and go through your own journey personally. And then NCLEX is doable and the journey is doable even with self-sponsored. And all the best to everyone.
Amazing. All the best to everyone in that is consult widely. And Passcode is here to answer every of your question. I hope, Humphrey, you've shared the contacts again. But I'll come back to you, Humphrey, once again. I've seen you share the contacts and the services that Passcode offers. So what will be a call to action in the next 30 seconds?
Okay. My call to action.
Humphrey?
My call to action goes with the topic of today, fastening your USRN process. We have discussed very important points. If there are some of the things that you had not started doing, which might hinder your journey, start doing them as soon as possible. There are some things like if your names are having a problem, even if you don't have the money to start the process now, you can be doing something like name change. So pick out, if you still want to do the USRN process, you have not started, pick out something that you can be doing as you wait for the time or maybe the resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, so Humphrey. It's always an honor to have you and also to have Passcode alumni to attend this meeting. Thank you very much, Paulette Maina. We appreciate you and celebrate you for passing NCLEX. Once again, dear colleagues, may never be able to answer all questions in one webinar. Can you YouTube channel? We have done a webinar beginning of January 2022 up to date. So you can follow our monthly webinars and check if some of the questions you have regarding this process have been answered. The recording, Peter Gashega, will be shared in our YouTube channel as has been shared by Humphrey in the chat box. If you have any question that probably you would like to direct to me, as I've seen some, my number is 0704-712-220. Once again, I repeat, 0704-712-220. Regardless of that, if you reach out to Passcode with the contacts that have been shared by Humphrey, you will be able to be answered the same questions that probably you may have for me. From me and the entire Passcode team, we wish you a lovely Easter Monday tomorrow and a great week ahead. We look forward to your consultations. We look forward to your questions. We look forward to your calls at Passcode, so that we may be able to support you through your USRN journey. Otherwise, if you're able to unmute, you can unmute and say good night and happy Easter from your end. Kindly, if you can unmute, you can just unmute and say happy Easter. Tukuoneko kidogo. Everybody, this is to everybody. Once again, my number is 0704-712-220. 0704-712-220. If you reach out to Passcode, you can still also get my contacts if you have a question that is directly directed to me. But of course, Passcode can still answer the same questions. Again, if you're able, it's 9 p.m. If you're able to unmute, kindly unmute your video and mic and let us tell each other good night and happy Easter.
Good night. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. It's an honor hosting you.
Good night. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Thank you very much. And from our end and passcode, we wish you a beloved week. Thank you very much.
Happy Easter.